right, what's up, everybody? Um, Give it a little bit, let some people jump on if they would like. Um, I know some watch this after it goes live, so whenever you're watching it, hello. Uh, I know we were supposed to meet tonight at 6, and we were looking forward to having a pizza party and just getting back to seeing each other's faces. Unfortunately, we're not able to. Um, Decision was made to not support that, so we're meeting back on YouTube live for the foreseeable future. If anything changes, if decisions are made, I will post about it and let y'all know. So I want to start a new series with you. Like I said, this series was meant for us to be in person so we could have some visual aids and see some cool stuff. But we're going to do it online instead. But this series is going to be called Overflow. Now, when you think of the word overflow, a lot of times I personally think of a cup overflowing with water. I think that's a common thought of when we hear the word overflow. So with that said, we're going to be looking for the next 3 to 4 weeks of how we can have our cup, and we're actually going to say our bucket, overflow with God's grace. Now, I want to look up a scripture. I should have had this marked, but I forgot to. It's Isaiah 12:3. I've got it right here. Isaiah 12:3 will be our theme verse for the next several weeks. So we're not going to be in this verse every week, but this is our theme verse for this series. And it says this, Isaiah chapter 12, verse 3. With joy, you will draw water from the wells of salvation. So that's what we're looking at. With joy, you draw water from the wells of salvation. Now, what do you use to draw water from a well? You use a bucket. That's why we're going to compare our hearts to a bucket for the next several weeks. We're going to look at how we can fill our hearts with God's love. But see, so often we try and draw from the wells of salvation. We try and draw this water up in our buckets, but our buckets are full of rocks. What happens? Well, if your bucket is full of rocks, you can't draw up as much water. Or what if our buckets are full with dirt? Well, you can draw up water, but it's going to be muddy water. The water's not going to benefit us as much as it would if it was our buckets were empty and allowed for us to fill up the complete bucket with clean water. So we're going to look at how over time our buckets collect dirt. Our buckets collect rocks. Okay, there's the phone ringing. I'm going to ignore it. It says fraudulent call, so that tells me we don't need it. Go figure, the one time I do this in my office, the phone rings. But we're going to look at how over time our buckets collect dirt, our buckets collect rocks, and how we can get those things out of our bucket so we can fill our buckets with God's love and God's grace and have a bucket completely full of that. So this series, we're going to look at how God works to clean, repair, and refresh our hearts, our buckets, okay? So tonight, we're going to look at the story of John the Baptist, but we're going to look at the story of John the Baptist before Jesus comes into the picture. A lot of times when we study John the Baptist, we study his life, and then we really start when Jesus comes into the picture. And we're going to look right before Jesus comes into the picture. You see, John the Baptist was a popular dude. Okay, he had a big following. All right, a lot of times he preached just outside, just a little bit of ways from the Jordan River, and people would come from all over, travel from far distances just to listen to what John the Baptist had to say. Now, he's kind of a weird guy. His clothes were made out of like camel hair and stuff like that. He ate bugs. He was kind of a strange guy. So it's kind of weird that he would have such a huge following. But here in a little bit, we're going to see why he had such a huge following. What made him so popular? Because usually if somebody wears clothing from camel hair or eats bugs a lot, they're not going to be that popular. Okay, I don't know how many people in your schools eat bugs, but they might not be the most popular person, right? So we're going to look at John the Baptist's life. So we're going to start in John chapter 1, verse 19. Now, this isn't John the Baptist that wrote the book of John. It was the Apostle John that wrote this book. But listen to what John says about John the Baptist. So we're going to say that one more time. Listen to what the Apostle John says about John the Baptist in John chapter 1, verse 19. All right, it says, "And this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, 'Who are you?' Verse 20, he confessed and did not deny, but confessed, 'I am not the Christ.'" So right off the bat, we see that John the Baptist was such a popular guy that these leaders, these Jewish leaders, sent Levites, which were just high officials, and priests to go see who John the Baptist was. Okay, they were confused of why he had such a huge following. They probably felt threatened. Okay, they've heard that a Messiah was coming, so they thought, well, maybe John the Baptist is this Messiah that's supposed to come and take our followers away from us. Okay, so the Jewish leaders were very concerned to who John the Baptist was. So they straight up ask him. They send out their little spies, and the spies ask him, "Hey, who are you?" And John the Baptist just simply responds, "I am not Jesus Christ. I am not the Messiah." So these leaders are confused. Well, how and why are you so popular? So let's continue reading verse 22. "So they said to him, 'Who are you? We need to give an answer to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself?'" And I love that because it's kind of comical, right? John probably felt like he was in the principal's office. Have you ever just sat in the principal's office and Miss Raby would be your principal, most likely. Rosebud students, I don't know who your principal is by names, but just imagine your principal sitting in front of you and saying, "Who do you think you are?" Right? Like you just got in trouble, but who do you think you are doing what you did to get in trouble? That's what these Jewish leaders were probably acting like towards John the Baptist. They were high officials, okay, and they come and they say, "Well, who do you think you are? Causing all this ruckus, causing this big following, teaching and preaching to all these people. Who do you think you are?" So let's read verse 23. John the Baptist responds with, "I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, 'Make straight the way of the Lord.' And the prophet Isaiah said, 'Now they had been sent from the Pharisees.'" Okay. Verse 25, they asked him, "Then why are you baptizing if you are neither the Christ nor Elijah or a prophet?" So they're saying, all right, you're not a prophet, you're not Elijah, you're not Christ. Why are you baptizing? Why are you teaching these people? And John the Baptist simply says, "I am paving the way for the one to come. I am preparing the people to meet the Messiah. I am not the Messiah myself, but I am preparing people to meet the Messiah." John answered them, "I baptize with water, but among you stands one you do not know." And listen to verse 27. This is the last verse we're going to read and a key verse in what we're going to be looking at tonight. "Even he who comes after me, the strap of whose sandal I am not worthy to untie." So let's just look at what's going on in John the Baptist's life right now. Okay, he has a huge following. We don't know the exact number, but we know it's a great number. We know people are coming from all ends of the area just to come hear him talk, just to hear what he's got to say. Okay, and he was preparing a way for them to come to know Christ, to meet the Messiah. Now, we talked about our bucket, right? And how we want it to be full with God's grace, full with this water. Well, we also talked about those rocks and those dirt, right? And a lot of times, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, we've got a coin. All right, one side of that coin is pride. The other side of that coin is shame. And here's the thing about pride and shame. No matter how you flip that coin, whatever it lands on leads to sin. Okay? Leads to our bucket being full of dirt and sand and rocks. Right? You know, John the Baptist could have easily been prideful, right? He could have had some pride in his life. Look at this gathering of people coming to listen to me. I mean, how easy would that have been? How easy is it for us to become prideful, right? We look at what's going on around us and we're like, look at what I've done. You know, sometimes we get prideful with our athletics. Look what I'm able to do. The fans are here to see me play. And sometimes we elevate ourselves over the team, right? Or what about in our academics? Okay, look how well I did. And we become boastful of these things. It would have been very easy for John the Baptist to do the same thing. All right, his teachings drew a crowd. But he said, look, the guy that's coming after me, I'm not even unworthy to unstrap his sandals. That's how low he put himself. And this is important here in a minute for us to talk about. But he put himself that much lower than Christ. Not that much lower than humanity, and that's going to be key, but that much lower than Christ, saying he's not even worthy to unstrap his sandal. That's how worthy Christ is. Okay, it's more about how worthy Christ is rather than how unworthy John the Baptist was. Okay, so John the Baptist could have had this huge ego, but he didn't. He knew his purpose, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. But you see, John the Baptist also could have let his shame get in the way. Now, we don't know a whole lot about John the Baptist before this time, but we do know this. John the Baptist is a sinner. He was a sinner. How do we know that? Well, we know Jesus is the only one to walk this earth and to never sin. So that tells us that John the Baptist was a sinner. And a lot of times with sin comes regret and shame. So John the Baptist could have been led to pave the way for Christ, but instead of taking that leap of faith, said, you know what? I am not worthy to do this. I've got these issues that I've done in my past, and I just don't think that I am the person for this. And John the Baptist could have used any excuse in the book of why he was not fit for the job. But what did he do? He listened to what God called him to do. Listen, God is calling you for a specific purpose. And a lot of times you say, I am not the person for this job. I am not fit for this job. But the truth of the matter is, if God is calling you to do something, you're the right person to do it because he is calling you to do it. And we can come up with excuse after excuse after excuse, but the truth of the matter is, God is calling you to do it. We need to listen to him. Okay? So John the Baptist could have been prideful because he had a great following. He could have been shameful because he had sinned in his past, but instead, John the Baptist focused on his purpose. And listen to what C.S. Lewis says about true humility, okay? Because that's what John the Baptist had. He had true humility. He wasn't prideful, but he also wasn't shameful. Listen to this. C.S. Lewis says, true humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. And I love that statement, but I just got tongue-tied, so I'm going to say it again. So just listen to this. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. You see, a lot of people will say, well, I got to think less of myself. And that's simply not true. Okay? You need to hold high regard of yourself. You need to love who you are. You know, throughout these last several weeks, we talked about loving your neighbor as yourself. Well, can I tell you, you cannot love your neighbor as yourself if you hate yourself, right? It's impossible. How can you love your neighbor as yourself if you hate yourself? Therefore, you're going to hate your neighbor if you try and treat them like you treat yourself. So it's not thinking less of you. You have to have high regard of yourself. You have to love who you are through Christ, but not to the point where you elevate the love that you have for yourself over the love you have for God and the love you have for others. That's what C.S. Lewis is saying here. He's saying, don't think less of yourself, just think of yourself less. Okay? Put other people's needs in front of your own while still loving who you are as a person in Christ. Okay, that is very, very important for us to remember. And so you can't love your neighbor if you hate yourself. But let's focus on how John the Baptist was able to do this. Okay, we're almost done. Our focus needs to be on God's purpose for our lives. That's what John the Baptist did. His calling to life was to speak and baptize in the name of God and pave the way for Christ's ministry. Okay, if we were to read later in this text, we would see that Christ walks up. John the Baptist actually baptizes Christ. At first he didn't want to, but Christ told him to, so he listened and obeyed. And we see that Christ's ministry started after that point. So John the Baptist played a huge role in Jesus' ministry. He jump-started it, right? He led the people to Christ before Christ was there. I mean, that is a big task. That is a big purpose in life. But can I tell you, that's a pretty big purpose, but that is our purpose as well. Because just as Jesus came as the Messiah, guess what? He's coming again. Okay, the second coming of Christ is in Scripture. It is true. So what is our job as Christ followers? Our purpose is the same as John the Baptist. We are to pave the way. We are to prepare the people to meet Christ. Because guess what? 1 out of 1 people are going to meet Christ. It's a true fact. But here's the kicker. Jesus is either going to say to you, good and well done, my good and faithful. Well done, my good and faithful servant. I'll get it right here in a minute. Or he's going to say, depart from me, for I do not know you. So everybody's going to meet him for an instant. The question is, are they going to meet him and then spend eternity with him? Or are they going to meet him and spend eternity without him? Okay? Our purpose is to prepare people to meet Christ. And how do you prepare people to meet Christ? You lead them to Christ. John the Baptist prepared the people that he spoke to meet Christ. He was focused in on that purpose. And he was so focused in on that purpose, he didn't let pride get in the way. He didn't let shame get in the way. Okay? He was focused in on what God was calling him to do. So my question to you is, what is God calling you to do? Is he telling you to be a leader in school? Is he telling you, hey, we need to get Just popular. We need to get people in the doors listening on Thursdays for Just. Okay, people need to know about Christ inside the walls of the school, though, because a lot of those kids don't come to church on Wednesday nights or Sunday morning. So how about we try and get them to on Thursdays? Okay, maybe your job is to be a leader at Shed. You know, be that leader in your small group. I know from experience, from leading a small group and also being a participant in a small group, sometimes small groups can be dead. And what I mean by that is the small group leader asks questions and it's silent. Okay, just crickets. Maybe God is calling you to be a leader in that small group. Okay, engage in the conversation. Help get people talking. Okay, help the small group leader out. You know, that might seem small to you, but that could mean everything to the person sitting beside you, because they got something going on in their lives, but they're too scared to speak up because nobody else is speaking up. So maybe when Shed gets back into full swing, hopefully sooner than later, and we have small groups again, maybe God is calling you to step up in your small groups. Maybe God is calling you to reach out to people right now via text, via social media, and just be a positive influence on their life. Because guess what? We haven't been able to meet for Shed, okay? We've been doing this live. And I know with the internet and our demographic, it's not the best. So a lot of people haven't even been able to come on Shed Live or watch it later on because their internet is not good enough to play YouTube. especially a live stream. Okay. So they're missing out on hearing of God's love. Their parents don't open the Bible. Their parents don't tell them of God's love. Maybe God is calling you to be that friend to help prepare them to meet Christ. Okay. Because I can promise you this. If you're called to salvation, God is calling you to confess. Okay. God is calling you to share his love to other people. Okay. What is your bucket full of? Okay. Is your bucket full of God's grace? Or do we have other stuff filling our bucket to where our God's grace is not overflowing? Okay. We try and fill the water up, but the dirt is just soaking it up. We try and fill the water up, but the rocks are getting in the way. Okay, what is in your bucket that you need to get out of it so you can fulfill God's purpose for your life? We're going to talk about this for the next 3 weeks or so. I love you guys. Always, listen, always, if you've got anything on your heart, text me. Okay, if you don't have my number, it's 501. Well, I'm not going to share my number because there's anybody could be watching this from any over the world. I don't want any spam calls, but just comment your name and I'll get you my number. If you want, just hit me up on social media, Facebook, Instagram. You can do the Shed Instagram or my personal Instagram or Snapchat. I answer Snapchat every now and then, so I'll get to you as soon as I can. But listen, if anything's going on, I hate that I can't see you in person. I hate that we can't talk in person. But listen, I'm just a phone call, a text, social media post away. So hit me up if anything's going on, if you got questions about anything. If you want to meet up, we can do that. We can do one-on-one meetups, all right? We can wear our masks. We can meet outside. Whatever it takes to get you engaged, to get you questions that you need answered. All right, I'm here for you. I love you, and I'll see you next Wednesday for Shed Live. Bye.